Hello, this is Dr. Kamani, licensed clinical psychologist. Thank you for tuning in today. You are here for going from one toxic job to another, Black women in toxic jobs. So, wanted to talk about this topic because I've had a lot of Black women reach out to me and say they've had more than one toxic job. And what's the point of going to another job if that job's going to be toxic too? So, thought it would be a good idea for us to have a conversation about that in terms of why maybe as Black women we have these experiences and to talk about maybe some strategies in terms of how to address this issue. So I have a very special guest today. You may have already seen her LinkedIn post, which was really popular. And she was talking about Black women in the workplace and how we are tired and we have to go through so much in the workplace, but people may not know we're tired or people may not know that we're hurting because we mask very well in the workplace. But sometimes we can be hurting very seriously. And you talked about the death of Dr. Nikita Mortimer as well. So we're going to talk about that as well. So thank you again for tuning in, everyone. I'm going to turn it over to my guest for her to introduce herself, and we're going to get right into the conversation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Tiffany Bowden. Thank you so much for tuning in. Some of you all may have seen my LinkedIn post, of course, as was mentioned, but you may have also seen my TED Talk, or you may have seen me in many of the corporate environments that I've worked in, be that Groupon or Amazon or Apple. I've also been at a lot of different conferences that you all have been to. But if this is my first time interacting with you, hello, this is Larry in the back hanging out with us, his little Yorkie. So he may pop in and do a cameo every now and then.
Okay, I was about to ask you about that. Okay. So, Dr. Tiffany, so when we first talked by phone, I asked you about a toxic job experience you've had, and you said which one? And that reaction is so common with my guests. So, we're going to have a conversation about some of the toxic jobs that you've had. And I would love for the audience to see and hear that it was like from one to the next to the next to the next, right? So they're all ridiculous, but just to show like in each form how ridiculous they were. And then when you look at them combined, the toll that it takes on us. So Dr. Bowden, if you could just share about the different, and I don't know if there might be more than what you told me already, but the ones that you told me in terms of the different toxic work experiences?
Yeah, so I've had plenty of toxic work environments. They've come in all shapes and sizes. In one, I actually was in an apprenticeship program hired right out of school. I'll try to avoid mentioning some of these company names so I don't have folks coming at my throat. But you can look at my LinkedIn bio and kind of do some deductive reasoning. But anyway, I started off in an apprenticeship program. And what an apprentice is actually someone who gets hired out of high school, and you are working in a corporate environment. You're learning the skills. So there's an understanding that you don't actually, know the same things that the people who are in a full-time space would know, or even the same things that an intern would know. I was put in the hands of someone because my manager left and she went abroad, but she didn't return until the end of my apprenticeship.
Mm,
While I was there, I had so much chaos unleashed in that the manager that she left me with, I guess, was either not informed that I was an apprentice or did not know exactly. And so he treated me like an incompetent peer. Um,
wow.
and he also had a lot of interns that were under him as well. And so he used a lot of acronyms with me when I didn't understand what they meant, or when I asked him to explain things, he would kind of scoff, like, why am I having to explain this to you? And it really broke my confidence. I thought that I was incapable. I thought that like, how could I have even possibly been here? I didn't understand what I was supposed to do on a day to day. I didn't have any guidance. And the way that he was interacting with me, he made me feel like I was supposed to already know. I was supposed to know
Mm,
these acronyms. I was supposed to know these terms. I was supposed to, be already a part of the in group. But I had never even had my first class within the business type that I was working in. I was there effectively as a student, right?
mhm.
So, in addition to that, I was sexually harassed, in that workplace. I also saw a literal dead body in the office. Yeah. So I came in one day. There was a person that was kind of hunched over at their desk, and I was the person that found them.
Oh
I
my gosh.
Yeah, and I got sent home by security, but the manager didn't even reach out to me, ask me how I was doing or anything like that. When I did come back, he was kind of more so grilling me as to why I was behind on my work, what's going on, would
Wow.
expect things to be
So
completed,
no compassion whatsoever.
no compassion.
Wow.
Um, and
That
then
you had just experienced a trauma.
just experienced a trauma, so this is also the same manager. This manager also blocked my work because I was at the point where I was wanting to explore different ideas, and there was a particular idea that I thought would be good if the company had uh, did some kind of outreach to the LGBTQ community, and this is just where the data had taken me. He blocked it because he was a part of the community and he didn't want people to feel like he put me up to it. And then he turned around and took my idea and presented
Oh,
it.
oh, okay. I'm gonna steal it.
He
Okay.
stole it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I just kind of walked in on a lunch and learn and saw that he was presenting my literal project.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that was one experience, okay?
Mm.
Um, and
Now
he
that's a
wrote
lot right there,
It was
right?
a lot, but he wrote my review so bad that, like,
Ooh.
it blocked my progress at that particular place because my actual manager, when she came back, it was a he said, she said, right? And so who are they gonna listen to? You or, the person that's been there.
Oh,
Now
that
this
about you.
he also did this to about 5 other apprentices. So the question should have been like, why is it that all of the apprentices under you that are Black women are coming out in this kind of way when previously they've been stellar, and their whole
Right.
reason that they're in the program is because they are above and beyond like qualified. Like, why is it all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden now they're just, something's wrong
Just
here?
so incompetent across the board. Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
there was
Okay.
no further exploration, you see. So
Mm.
that was the first one. But like I was already kind of just like, you know what? Maybe I'm just not good at this and I'm just going to leave. Like, I'm just
Mm.
going to take my ball and go.
Mm.
But I had internally felt like maybe I'm just not good at business. And so that experience made me leave corporate, made me leave business. And I went into
Wait,
academia.
can I pause a second, Dr. Bowden?
Mhm,
So you
mhm.
talked about that experience made you question your worth and made you
Yeah,
question if you were good in this area, right? And so
mhm.
then you pivoted to something else because you
I
were thinking
pivoted.
maybe I'm not good in this.
Yeah, I thought maybe I wasn't good at it, and so I said, "Okay, well, I'm just gonna go into academia and I'm gonna teach." Then I
Okay.
found out there that it was just as corporate and political, it just didn't pay as well, so I was like, "Well, let me just do something else." And so then I went into, entrepreneurship, and as it turned out, I was very good at business to the point that I was making over $160,000 on a singular event. So, like, this is
Wow.
complete night and day difference, right?
Yeah.
Now, the issue with that is that I was with a toxic partner. So this business partner, it was a domestic violence relationship too. So it was like a combined situation.
Wow.
So I had this toxic partner, and it doesn't have to. And for anybody who's out there, like, it doesn't have to be like a romantic partner. It can be a traditional business partner. It can be an investor. It could be a hostile board. Plenty of people have seen hostile partnerships.
Mhm, mhm.
And in this particular case, I was in one of those where it was always I needed to do more, I needed to do more, I needed to do more, and it was more and more and more being put on my back without support. I was working probably 14-hour days,
Oh
7 days
no.
a week. So while I was successful on paper with entrepreneurship, my internal was breaking. My
Yeah.
internal was breaking. Okay.
And you had no life. Like it was totally consuming and you're being controlled by your so-called partner.
Mhm. So at the point where I finally completely broke and I realized, like, oh, I can't continue like this. And I got the
Mhm.
appropriate therapy that I needed and, all of the things that I needed to pour into myself. Then I realized, like, oh, so some of the toxic work environment that you experience is what you bring into the space. Some of that toxic is in yourself. And in my
Mm.
case, it was like the codependency, the lack of boundaries, the lack of self worth, all of those types of things. If you are dealing with those things, wherever you go, there you are. So it doesn't matter if you're working for yourself, it doesn't matter if you're working for someone else, you're still going to struggle with those things.
Mhm.
So when I finally, actually got that for myself and I took all of those losses and turned them into lessons for myself and built myself up, then
Mhm.
I was able to actually see true success and sustainable success, where it's like I have boundaries not only for others, but for myself. The same way, like in a corporate environment where you would block your calendar, I do that for myself in my personal time. I've been more successful as an entrepreneur on my own than, in that second part than I have ever been, even within that first part of entrepreneurship or with corporate. But I
Yeah.
decided that I was going to, try my hand at corporate again, and as it turned out, like corporate was so much easier, like so much easier. Okay. Like when I'm saying I did corporate to take a break. Okay. Like I did it because like, all right, for entrepreneurship, you have to be the salesperson, the marketing person, the branding person, the copywriter. You've got to send out all the PR stuff. You've got to be your own product market manager. You got to do all the things, right? When you're in a corporate role, you do your specific job and you do it well, or at least that's how it's supposed to be, unless you're a Black woman, right?
That's the one variable, right?
That's the
Yeah. Okay.
variable. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So here we are again. So I went in and I was just like, oh, I just want to do my little thing and go home like everybody else, because that's what I see everybody else, doing. And, it started off kind of like that. And then what I noticed is that as people got to know me and they started to see that, oh, this person has impeccable work, they would increase my scope. They would give me
Mm.
more things to do. They would
Mhm.
reward that job well done with
More
more
work.
money.
Expression labor even more. Yes. Uh-huh.
So I'm like, so what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to not perform? Because I see what
Mhm.
happens over here when these folks perform, they actually get more money, they get increase in title, they get, time off, they get all sorts of things. For me, I get more work.
Wow.
you know,
Wow. Right.
and
Can
I
I
had
ask you questions? Can I ask you a
sure,
question real quick,
sure.
Edwina? Because I think this happens to a lot of Black women across the board, corporate or regardless, that we do the job well. They give us more work, right? Then we feel this expectation that we have to rise to the occasion. And then we keep working hard and we start deluding ourselves that at some point they're going to recognize our effort and our talent and they're going to promote us. And then all these great things are going to happen. But I think that's when we become disillusioned.
Mm. Here's the thing. I have actually seen Black women become more successful in advancing themselves by promoting themselves. And what that sometimes looks like is going to another company, let's call it
Mm.
every 2 years, right? So
Mm.
instead of trying to work yourself up in a particular corporate space, go laterally. Like, so every 2 years, okay, you're a manager, you're gonna go to senior manager, you wanna go to a director, you wanna hop, move around. Like, that's what,
So taking your power back,
that's
right?
it. You don't
And
have
you're
to.
not waiting for people within the organization to promote. You're promoting yourself.
You promote
I
yourself. Give
love that.
yourself the promotion. Give yourself the, like, work on your visibility, work on your resume, work on, just, keeping your confidence. Because I will say that a lot of us have the confidence, but we allow our confidence to get broken in these
Yep.
environments. And
Yep.
so with that, it's so important to have other people in your corner, other Black women, just other people, and triangulate the information so that you don't get gaslit out of your greatness,
Yeah.
because that will happen.
Oh, you said gaslighting out of your greatness.
Mhm.
I got it. That is, ooh, that's dope. I felt that when you said that, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
what's interesting too is that when we're in these situations as well, right? So we keep trying to get that validation. And it's like the carrot keeps going further and further, like you can never quite get it. And
Mhm.
then, like you said, in terms of we start working harder and harder, longer and longer, and then we become disconnected from who am I as a person, right? You're trying to get all your validation from these external sources, and they're not going to give it to you, right? Because they're gaslighting you because they want to continue to exploit you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so when I was saying, wherever you go, there you are. Like if you're dealing with that issue at work, I'm guaranteeing you're dealing with that in your personal life. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're someone who, needs that external validation piece, that's going to follow you in other spaces. So that's something that you need to work out with your therapist, work out with a coach, like really, really drilling on that issue. Anything that's
Yeah.
coming up in your personal space, guarantee you it's coming up there.
Yes, 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 yes. So I'm wondering, in the work that you do with Black women, so given your own experiences as well as what you've heard from other Black women, what are some of the patterns that you have heard in relation to Black women in the workplace, particularly when they go from one toxic job and they keep having toxic job experiences?
There's so many, honestly. Like what it is that like Black women are expected to be superwoman. We're expected and we're thought of to be strong. And so therefore we tend to be under supported because we're thought, oh, they've got it, right? And we may in fact have it on paper. Like we're going to show up and we're going to do the thing
It's going
because
to show
that's what
out.
we do. That's what we
Yes,
do. Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay, we do it, but there's a cost, right? Because
Yeah.
when we're successful and we succeed and we do the things despite the resources, they're like, see, told you, you didn't need help, you didn't need the resources.
So it reinforces it.
You reinforce it, so you just
Wow.
validate it. their beliefs, and so you get into this kind of toxic cycle. But then on the
Yeah.
alternative, it's kind of like, well, what do? Do you like fail and then take that risk as well, because then you end up in that problem. So I see a lot of Black women that are kind of in that space. I
Mhm.
also see a lot of Black women who are dealing with self-esteem issues, like they don't really see themselves. Uh, a lot of us are coming from faith-based backgrounds, and that's actually a common thread that I see. And one of the core things that I've seen, and I've been able to, it's like one of those if you spot it you got it type of scenarios, right? One of the things that I've had to work through is holding my faith and integrating just like my personhood, because anytime that I would have a win, whether that's in my personal life, professional life, for what we would say is like give God glory, right? Like, oh, God did
Mhm.
this, God, opened that door for me. God made sure that that presentation went well. And absolutely. But also I put in the work and I put in the
Mhm.
effort and the discipline to meet that moment. Right. And so sometimes it's hard for us to hold ourselves in what we brought into the space. Right.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's another theme that I also do see.
And
Asking for
Donna, can I ask you about something else too? And
sure.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I just thought about something. I'm wondering also for Black women that we have been taught to be humble and not
Mm.
to be too big, right? So
Hmm.
then I'm wondering if that might really cause us to kind of, like I don't want to seem too much, right? I don't want to overshadow people too much. And so we kind of go within. And so when we do that, then we are not acknowledging what we're doing. And then you also started talking about asking for help. I know that's a big
Yeah.
issue too.
Yeah. So like dimming our light, right, is so important. Like you're shrinking so that other people can feel a little bit taller, right? If you get
Mm,
into a habit of doing that, like
mm,
you really forget like just how mighty you are, like how
mm-hmm,
powerful you are, like just how
mm-hmm,
dope you are when you stand with your back straight. And it's really important that you get into a practice where you do that ultimately, right? And then in terms of asking for help, a lot of folks don't ask for help because sometimes it's been a situation where you've asked for help in the past and it hasn't necessarily been rewarded favorably, right? And
mm,
so then people simply just stop asking, or we may have other kinds of ideas around help where we think that it makes us look weak and we're afraid of being vulnerable in non-psychologically safe environments, right? Those types of things. So I
mm,
see those things as well. And finally, I will say another like core thing I see is a kind of codependency, right? So it's like this belief that you need someone else, like even when you have
mm,
the components, the things that you need, to be a leader or to run the things that you need to run, what have you. We might think that we need more than we do. There's a time where it's like, okay, we need support. And then there's a time where it's like, you've got it, sis. Like you actually can step in and you can lead. Like you can actually do it. You can step into your light. But we have anxiety.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like liken it to like a kind of a imposter syndrome, if you will. I really kind of struggle with the imposter syndrome thing.
Me too. Me too. I'm so glad you brought that up. We're gonna talk about that. Yes.
Like, I don't know. I don't see. It's not what
Yes.
I'm seeing. I
Yes.
begin to see a lot of Black women who know that they've got it. Okay.
Yes.
I see
Yes.
more of us that know that we've got it. Okay.
Yes.
Less,
Yes.
less of us like, I don't know. But you know,
Yeah.
every now and then, you know, I do have some, but it tends to be more earlier career
Yeah.
folks where they're not really necessarily sure where their footing should be. But I will tell you, I see more people that are like, I know I'm capable. I'm just
Yes.
trying to get the opportunity. I know I'm capable.
Yes.
I'm trying to get the leadership. I'm trying to get the promotion. I'm trying to get,
Yes.
you know, the things. So, you know, I see those things as well.
And the double message, right? Because I'm so glad you, because I'm sitting here biting my tongue, like I want to say something. I'm just wait, right? But the double message of the imposter, particularly for Black women, is that as Black women, we have been told already, you got to be twice as hard to get half as much. We know that as Black women, we are the most educated in the nation. All that, so we are already confident as we come into the workplace. We know what we got. We got the education, the credentials, all that. And so we come in and we nail it a lot of times when we come into the workplace. So it's not like that sense of insecurity, like, do I have what it's going to take? A lot of times that's not our experience. However, what we encounter, because we observe what's going on in the workplace, we observe how people are assessing us, and we get the message, we better dim our light, one. Number two, we've also seen, as the research talks about too, we've also seen about the glass cliff, how as Black women were brought into like impossible situations in the workplace with little support, right? And so we feel like we have to give it our all to save an organization, that the organization not going to save you. But the imposter part, it's not from us a lot of times. It
Yeah,
is other people treating us like we're imposters. They're treating us like, how'd you get here? What are you
absolutely.
doing here? Oh, you think you're all that. Oh, I'm going to put you in your place. Oh, you are intimidating. But they're
Hmm.
intimidated by you. And so, as Black women, I think our experience of imposter syndrome many times is very, very
Very,
different. Yes,
very different. Very different.
yes,
Because
yes.
I mean, I know myself, I've gotten directly advised to remove the doctor in front of my name.
Me too. Me too.
Like,
Yes, me too.
I
Yes,
was like,
yes.
why?
Why? Why? Would you say that to anybody else?
And they
Would you
don't,
say that to
because
anybody else?
there's other you know PhDs in different spaces. So like, and I do a lot of work in learning and development, but I've
Mhm.
specifically gotten it in that space that they may have an issue with me, you know, being, you know, in that kind of a way, like saying, oh, I'm Dr. Tiffany Bowden, and just maybe just lead with Tiffany. And
Mhm.
meanwhile,
Yeah.
we have, you know, Dr. So and so
Yeah.
who white male, or
Yep.
some other Dr. So and so white female, and they
Yes.
don't, you know, take their credentials down or anything
No.
like that. And
No.
somebody else, Esquire. I'm like, okay, so help me understand it. Why are
Right.
y'all asking me to be Tiffany in a
Yes.
professional setting where you
Right.
want to pull from these credentials, but you don't want me to elevate that I am a PhD in this
Like,
topic?
how dare you, right? So you hire me. So me having this educational background helped me stand out in terms of even getting the
Mhm.
job. So
Yeah,
when I get the job, you're telling me don't use those credentials because you make people uncomfortable.
yeah,
It is
correct.
so crazy. That happened to me at my previous toxic job that thankfully I resigned from, that they would not either not acknowledge that I had a doctorate, just would not acknowledge it. Or one person who did not look like us, Tiff, I'm calling you Tiff. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
I'm
No,
talking,
no, it's fine.
um, even said to me, so it's me and another Black woman who had PhDs, and she said, uh, you know, maybe you guys shouldn't use doctor because it might make people uncomfortable. You know, and so
Yeah.
it's just like we're told as Black women, you know, get the highest level of education, get all these things. And I think for some of us, when we have gone through so much, because I got a whole nother thing to talk about graduate school and the racism in graduate school, right? We're gonna have a panel on that. We're gonna have a panel on that in October.
Woo! I'm
And
gonna
we'll
need
have
a
a whole
massage after
panel,
that one.
girl. So the racism and all that we go through to even get these degrees is so much. So when we get to this point and we come into the workplace, it is so demeaning, demoralizing. It's just a horrible experience when you've gone through so much to get there and you're treated in a way like you're less than, and you always feel the need that you have to produce, right? So then that's why you overproduce. That's why you overwork. That's why you become a workaholic. That's why you don't want to use your vacation days. That's why you don't want to use sick days. All it's a pattern, right? Now you said something to Dr. Bowden I wanted you to touch on. You talked about psychological safety. Can you speak on that in relation to what does that look like in the workplace? Because at this point, I think because the toxicity at my former job, I'm like, is that even possible to have psychological safety in the workplace? Can you talk a little bit about what is that, particularly in relation to Black women?
Yeah, it is possible to have psychological safety in the workplace. I will say that we often do not have it. And to the extent that we don't have it, there's different levels to
Yeah.
this, right? So the first level is inclusion safety. That's the safety that you get where it's like, okay, I feel like I'm a part of the team. You know, that can be that first moment of truth where they pronounce your name correctly. You get you get your name tag and you feel that you are on the team and that you are seen at least on the most basic human respect level. It could mean that
Yes.
they give you the tools that you need to do your job, whether that's a screen
Mhm.
reader, whether you need certain kinds of tools to just simply show up, okay, and you
Mhm.
feel like you
Mhm.
have those basic things met. That's inclusion safety.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
then you have that learner safety. So, do I feel safe to learn in this environment? Which means, do I feel safe to make mistakes? Do I feel safe to ask questions? That's what that learner safety would be. Contributor safety is in now. Can I bring my voice into this space? Can I bring all of my voice? Can I, speak up and, demonstrate what I know to be true? That would
Mhm.
be more of a contributor safety. Now, challenger safety is that fourth level of like, can I challenge authority? Can I disagree? Can I
Mhm.
speak my voice in a way that
Mm.
maybe challenges something that is
Mm.
common thought? Now, most of us can't get to challenger safety in
Right.
our
You see the expression on my face, right? Like what? Because
yeah,
usually that comes with retaliation big time.
that comes with a lot. Yes. Now, here's the thing. For those of us who work in the diversity and inclusion space and other spaces like that, we tend to have to get into challenger vibes without the psychological safety. Like we
Mhm.
know that there is no psychological safety, and yet we have to do it anyway. And so we're
Wow.
at risk all the time. We
Mm.
know that we're at risk. Right now there's a whole, retaliation across the industry about DEI.
Mhm.
Everybody is
Yeah.
like targeted right now, right?
Yeah.
But we've always known that we have not had psychological safety in our space. We do our work anyway. And a lot of us are doing that. So a lot of you are still challenging, you're challenging certain standards. You're pushing these companies to innovate. You're pushing them to grow. You're pushing them to have better, pay standards, pushing them to have better work policies. That's what Dr. Mortimer was doing. And we're doing that despite not having that psychological safety, not being supported. So there's levels to this, inclusion safety, learner safety, contributor safety, challenger safety. If anything, Black women we tend to be able to get into that inclusion safety piece because that's where a lot of these companies like to focus on is that first floor place. We may even be able to get to that learner safety, possibly. It's a lot
Mhm.
harder for us to get to those second levels.
Yes, 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 right. And I was just thinking as you were talking about how many Black women in the DEI space have left. So all these high profile Black women in DEI positions have left. And I think what you're saying is that they may have come in thinking or being sold that they were going to be able to do all these different changes, but they were really challenged against a system that was not going to change.
Oh man, I have so much to say just on this topic. This is a whole tangent for me, but like, we're leaving for different reasons. Some of us are simply leaving to protect our peace, right?
Mm,
Some of us are like, you know what? I was here to change things, but I recognize what's in my scope of control and what's outside of my control. And I'm no longer going to try to influence without authority. I'm going to protect my peace and I'm going to withdraw myself from this environment, and I'm going to pour into myself the things that pour back into me.
yeah.
Um, some of us are leaving and we're saying that, but we're saying, I'm going to start my own business where I do control things, and I'm going to pour into the companies and I'm going to go where I'm celebrated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of us are leaving not by choice, but because of the retaliations that are going on. And then it's just very difficult to get into a new role because
Mm,
what they do to you as a diversity practitioner is they make you a Swiss Army knife. So they want you to do learning and development. They want you to do coaching. They want you to do data analytics. They want you to run the ERGs. They want for you to write reports. They want you to do external reports. They also want you to do their diversity conferences.
oh
They
my
want you
God.
to talent.
That's impossible.
It is impossible, but they don't think so, right? So it's like they don't have any understanding that these are several different roles. And so
Yeah.
some people in DEI are like, you know what? I'm one person and y'all have no budget. And so I'm going to just go to one of these spaces that I'm passionate about, whether that's learning and development or talent acquisition or sales or branding. And I'm just going to show up and I'm going to do my thing within that space. And some of us are just kind of pulling back from the DEI space altogether because they understand that it's performative in terms of the way that these companies are doing it. But it doesn't mean that we as Black women have lost our promise. We're just doing it within our own space so that we don't get overwhelmed in our actual jobs, because they come to expect you to do the things, but it does not come with the pay. I like, for example, I
The
actually,
pay, the power, or the support.
it doesn't come with any of it. Like, so I actually was just in a loop for an assistant director of diversity role for a university. You want to know how much that role paid? They were
Oh,
going to pay the assistant director of diversity. Let me just tell you all the things that they were going to have to do. They were going to have to lay out the diversity for the plans for the graduate studies plan. They were going to have to, go tour different high schools. They were going to have to do the onboarding and the orientation for graduate students. They were going to have to connect with all these different student organizations, and I can go on and on. That
a
position,
lot, a lot.
yeah, that position paid between $40,000 and $60,000, and
Stop it. Stop it.
had to report in office 5 days a week
No.
in the middle of nowhere at some, in some town. That's what
Wow.
we're dealing with.
Wow. 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 You
Yeah.
know, when you were talking, I was thinking about something too. I think that, as you said, some Black women are leaving on their own accord, like they see the writing on the wall, like this is not worth it. And they are centering themselves in terms of their own health, which thank God for that, because so many Black women are sacrificing their mental and their physical well-being. So thank God for that. What is it, do you think, in terms of the mindset? Because I've heard of this too. We see the writing on the wall, we see what's happening. We peeped it, but we say, you're not going to run me out of here. You're not going to run me out of here. I'm not going to let you win. Can you speak to that? Because I've heard
Okay.
that way too much.
I used to be that girl. Okay. Let me tell you, I used to be that girl.
That was you.
Ooh, ooh, I was that one. Okay, so here's the situation though. Okay, my father used to be a professional football player, and he also coached me as an athlete in a lot of different sports. And I always got that lesson of never quit. Okay, and a lot of Black women from one space or another, we get that message of don't quit. We
That's
get that
right.
somewhere.
You're
Okay,
not weak. You're not a punk.
you're not that. So you didn't
Yeah.
have to have this coach of a father. Somebody told you
Yes.
somewhere, okay,
Yes.
not to quit. And I got that message. Okay. So it didn't matter, what the fight was. I was in it to win it. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the situation. My father actually passed away, and he came back to me in a dream 6 years later to effectively
Wow.
save my life, because I was 10 toes down, going 100 miles per hour in a conflict where I was just not going to back down. And it was costing
Mm.
me sleep. It was costing me my health. It was costing me my finances. It was costing everything. Okay. But I felt like I couldn't quit, right? And
Mm.
so he came to like give me a distinction, and that is that there's a difference between quitting and letting go. And
Yes.
and so quitting is like, okay, there's something more that you can do. Okay. And
Mhm.
like you have the ball in your hands, there's time on the clock, it's yours to win. Try, take the shot. If you're a basketball fan, that's kind of how I think about it, right? There's something more in the tank that you can do, and you can bring forth some effort and you can try, and it's your moment to try. And you
Mhm.
just choose not to. That's what quitting can look like, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas letting go is having wisdom to know that when you're holding on, you're just producing diminishing returns. And
Mm.
doing so is going to just run you to empty. You need to
Mhm.
understand that distinction, because you
Yeah.
cannot win
Yeah.
if you keep going to the point of full out diminishing returns. It's going to
Yep.
land you in burnout. You're going to
Yep.
lose ultimately.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that was the distinction. So like, to finish it out, yes, never quit, always let go. They go
Mm.
together. They go together. And so that's a
Yes.
personal mantra for me that protects me and
Yeah.
helps me to not just be kind of tunnel vision with it. There are times where you need to call it. There are times where you need to walk
Yes.
away from something.
Yes. And I even did a video on that in terms of, you're not quitting, you are walking away. So
Mhm,
similar thought, right? Is that I'm taking my power back and I'm saying I will no longer expend any more of my energy fighting people to do my job, which is absolutely ridiculous, and being demeaned and all these other things in the process. I refuse to let that happen. So I'm taking my power back and I'm walking away. And my hope is that more Black women listening to this will be able to have that shift, right? So, it's interesting. As I was coming up and thinking about the title for this live today, I was like, you know what? I bet somebody is going to say something crazy about the title. And they're going to say, well, the common denominator is the Black woman. That, the fact that she keeps having these negative work experiences, right? Now, I did recognize what you said too, that was so powerful. You said that there might be certain qualities that we might have that might kind of predispose us for certain situations, right? You talk about codependency, you talk about lack of boundaries, self-worth, which I think that's one part of it that we need to be mindful of, right?
mhm,
But the other part is I don't want us to discount that there's racism and sexism and all these other things
mhm.
at jobs. So it's not like you go to one job and the racism, sexism has stopped.
Absolutely
It's
not.
everywhere.
It's
It's
everywhere.
everywhere.
It is.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
everywhere. And let's just be honest, like, there's a history of promoting and awarding toxic leadership. There is a history of promoting narcissistic leadership. Okay.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
it's
I
been
can attest
awarded.
to that.
It's been awarded,
Yes.
in the space, right? And if we try to go toe to toe with a narcissistic leadership, with our never quit type of, way of being, it's not generally going to end well for us,
No,
you know?
no.
So that's just something to kind of know. I will say, just from our own spaces, like, our community doesn't tend to have as much of like the mental health support to for us to like get the coping skills, the resilience skills, the emotional regulation, and that understanding that it is okay to walk away. It is okay to
Yes.
assert boundaries, and here is how you can do it in a healthy way. So that's the place that we bring to the table, but that comes with its own systemic issues of
Hmm.
racism, socioeconomic issues. That is another thing. But within these
Yeah.
workplaces too, they come with their own biases, their own stereotypes, and their own thoughts about who
Hmm.
you are. And
Hmm.
that plays its own role. And it's not like it's just this singular job. It's a cultural thing. So if you go from this job, you go to another job, you go to another job, it's still the same space, if that makes sense.
Yes. Because it's the work culture. And
Yes.
so when we think about that, when you talked about the narcissism and the toxic boss, the toxic leadership, they all support one another. So it's generally not just one person or a few people, it's the whole system is
Yes,
toxic. And so
it is.
when we think or we delude ourselves or lie to ourselves, I'm going to fight, I'm going to stick it out, I'm going to do all these other things, the stacks are against you. So you're going to lose because the game is rigged. So we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also should kind of do a value assessment, a personal value assessment, just to kind of get a understanding of like, where do you actually authentically need to show up? Like, where do you need to kind of remove yourself? And where is it
Yes.
that you would actually be in integrity by bringing your values forward with an organization that aligns with those values? Because then you could speak to
Yes.
some of those values, right? Some of these things may be regional in nature. Like, would it be better for you to work, for a company that's based on the West Coast or based on the East Coast, based in the South, some of those things. Some industries have very different kinds of cultures in history. Tech has a very different culture than construction, for example. Like it's very different in finance.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people tend to have very different kind of challenges in those kinds of industries because they have different kinds of cultural hubs. So
Yeah.
understanding those kind of dynamics about your space and evaluating like, do I even need to maybe look at going to a different industry? Do I need to look at working for a company that's based in another region or country? Might that be a better cultural fit for me? Because not
Mm-hmm.
every culture is exactly the same, but
Mm-hmm.
the biases do tend to kind of pervade, but they'll show up a little bit different.
Yeah. And I appreciate what you said in terms of really evaluating what's best for you and recognize that you have choice. Even the part when you talked about promoting yourself, leaving and going to another position, doing whatever, but you have choice. And I think so many Black women, we get into this mind frame also of, well, all jobs are toxic. I might as well just stay with the devil I know. And I keep saying, I don't want you to stay with no devil. Like, we don't want to be around no devils,
No.
right?
Right.
So what would you say to a Black woman who's watching us right now, and she is of the mind frame, all jobs are toxic. I might as well just stick this one out because the next one I go to is going to be bad too. So I might as well just stay at this toxic job, even though the toxic job is killing her. What would you say to her?
I would say that that is a losing mindset. And I see, and I'm speaking to the winner in you that wants to live and wants to thrive. I have, taken a poll on my LinkedIn over 500 women and asked them, like, how many of you are thriving? How many of you are just existing? How many of you are surviving? You know, and do you know that only 15% said that they were thriving?
Only 15% out of
Percent.
500?
Only
Oh,
50.
that's horrible. That's
We
horrible.
we deserve better. When I run this
Yes.
exact same poll in other spaces for exclusively white women, do you know how many of them say that they're thriving?
How
Over
many?
60%.
No.
Over
Mm,
60%.
wow.
So
Wow.
I'm just going to say we deserve better, right? And
Yes.
person that thinks that, okay, I'm just going to be one toxic job to another. I hear you, and it sounds like you're pretty burnt out and you're pretty exhausted, and it might be a good time to check in with yourself and to rest. Like if you are in a corporate job and you've been there for at least 1 year, and you have FMLA, as a full-time employee, don't be afraid to take that leave of absence
Yes.
with a counselor. There are plenty of programs, IOP programs, programs where you can go for 4 hours to 8 hours a day and do therapeutic activities and get your life back, right, and heal,
Yeah.
and
Get
then
your life back.
get your
Yes.
life back and kind
Yes.
of heal and then look at it, with different tools. Like maybe you
Yeah.
come back to that same situation, but not the same person. And
Yeah.
you have the skills that you need to set your boundaries, and you have the skills that you need to voice what you need. And maybe that does the things to change it around. Or you come back where you've been rested enough to see, okay, this is producing diminishing returns.
Yes. This is hurting me. This is making me sick, right? So when you have time away, you're able to reality test with other people like, girl, that was crazy. Girl, you need to leave. Like that is not healthy for you. And the hope is that you have a circle around you that are honest with you and that say that and they're not projecting their own fears. Girl, you better stay there. Girl, no, no, no. Girl, no. We have to focus on what's best for ourselves and
No.
be clear about that. So,
What's
in
it's
terms of, yes, go on, I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm just saying it's really interesting that this seems to be like the only space that it would be even appropriate to give that kind of advice. Like if you were with if this were a romantic situation and the person was talking about how they're in an abusive relationship and the partner is hurting them and they think that the person is effectively killing them, is producing,
Mm,
we wouldn't dream of being like, oh, okay, yeah, let's just encourage this person to stay, right?
girl, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We wouldn't do that.
No,
It's
no.
the same kind of thing. So you have to actually evaluate the situation for what it truly is, but we can't get into the nihilism of like, okay, everything is like that, right?
Yeah.
If we feel that way, there's probably so much trauma there that we need to kind of unpack that first so that we
Mhm.
don't bring that into the next thing, which, it depends on like kind of what the situation is as to what that looks like, but
Yeah.
definitely get yourself to safety.
Yes, and therapy, right? So if all this is happening to you, get into therapy. So again, you can reality test, you can process, you can determine what is best for you in that moment. Okay, so I do have a video about how to find a Black therapist and therapy resources. They'll be in
Okay.
the description section of this video as well. So in terms of, oh my God, only 15%. So okay, so I want to shift gears a little bit. So I want to go back to the article or the post you wrote in LinkedIn about the toll that a workplace can have on us, and as Black women, how we mask that things are okay. Can you speak a little bit in terms of the motivation for that post and any words that you can say as a result of writing that post or any feedback you got from that post?
I wrote that post out of sheer exhaustion myself, right? It's basically my moment of I'm putting down my cape. I am not doing it, right? I'm not doing the superwoman thing, right? And I'm not Princess Peach. No one's coming to save me, okay? No, I'm not Princess Peach of some castle. So if you want to feel support, if you want to feel like, okay, I'm gonna take my share, but not more than that, right? To the point where it's just going to just drain me out. You have to take those steps for yourself. And what I was seeing is that there were so many just bad sisters, bad, like just gorgeous, okay, coming in full face beat and just
Mm-hmm.
outfits to the
Looking
gods,
gorgeous,
doing things,
dressing a
saying
nine. Yes.
things, okay, presentation on point, okay,
Uh-huh.
all the things, okay? Okay, we don't miss. But if you talk behind the scenes, we are so exhausted and unilaterally a lot of us don't feel like we have support. And what I was saying in that post is like when Black women are exhausted, suicide looks like rest because what I have seen is that there's a lot of professional Black women where that is becoming an uptick trend that is a very unfortunate and a very scary and very dangerous thing to
Very
see.
sad.
And
Yeah.
it's always a surprise. It's
Yeah.
always a surprise. It was a surprise when Chesley Christ, did that. It was a surprise with Dr. Mortimer. It's been a surprise for like all the professional Black women that we have seen where it's like, but they were like on top of their game. They were so beautiful. They just smiled so beautifully. They were, yes, that's what it looks like in our community.
Yep. Yep.
It's
Yep.
an extreme anxiety. It's an extreme amount of pressure to lift because we have been taught that that's how we need to show up and that we can't bring that level of vulnerability and have any hair out of place because
Right.
this is like it's like we're soldiers and this is our war paint, you know,
Mhm.
you
We're
know,
masking. We're masking.
masking and it's very exhausting.
Yeah, yeah. And I've heard a lot of Black women too. And first of all, I want to say thank you so much for that post.
No,
Thank you so much for that post because so many Black women are dying inside. So they talk about masking. They talk about on their way to work, they're crying, boohoo crying, but they get it together in the car. They do what they need to do. They do what they need to, and they come out and they're crying on the way home. And so a lot of Black women are experiencing that. And when we're saying this, I want to just say to the audience that when Dr. Bowden and I are saying this, so we're really emphasizing that it can be that extreme. And in fact, Marissa Price is in the chat, and she did a video about no job is worth your life, and that's true. That's true. But because we, have been taught or programmed that work defines us, right, and we have to focus on that, and we have to do all these things. That when things don't go well at work, then we have this sense of our self-esteem, right? Or our self-worth is wrapped up into that. So I just want to say to any Black woman, if you're having these thoughts, please know that no job is worth your life. None. Okay. If you are feeling that or you having any thoughts in relation to that, please go to the nearest emergency room, call 911, let them know this is a mental health emergency. You can also call 988 or text 988 for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number, and that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I will put that information in the description section as well. So I just want to be very clear that this can be something very serious. So, Dr. Bowden, can you share, because you talked about so many different experiences you've had, but so much words of wisdom, and it sounds like you've grown from each of these experiences. It
Right.
sounds like you've experienced post-traumatic growth in the
Mhm.
sense that these traumatic things have happened and you have grown as a result from that. So can you share with the audience what is the work that you're doing now and how can people contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely a living example of what it means to fall up. Okay. Like I have, learned a lot more from failure and from my trauma and from narcissistic abuse than I have even from successes. And when I say narcissistic abuse, I mean in corporate environments, in my personal life. And if you allow them, narcissists can be master teachers. They will show you a lot about yourself if you're willing to look.
Mhm.
So, what I will say is that when I was going through all of these moments, like I categorized these different losses that I felt like I was having, and I turned each of those losses into lessons, and then I created curriculum called business self-defense that you're welcome to participate in with me. I do also have a coaching program for Black women who are interested in navigating these traumatic environments, if you will. And it doesn't even have to be a traumatic environment. It could just simply be, there's some women who are having actually like really great environments, but they just need, someone to kind of have that moment of truth with them. Like, hey, this is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm thinking. They may have like an email anxiety, like, help me process the tone here. Can you look at this and what's the tone that I'm given here? How do you think this is going to land? Like
Oh,
those types of things.
oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so I'm the birdie on your shoulder that kind of helps you like, no, you've got this, or okay, now
Yes.
what? Let's take a minute, go take a walk first, and then go write the email.
Yes.
Take a walk, and then
That's
so I do
great.
that. So I do all
And
of that.
I want to say this too, Dr. Bonner, before I remember. I want to be clear that when we're talking about these situations, we're not saying that Black women are not self-assessing because we are usually a Black woman in a professional space, we are constantly self-assessing because we
Mhm.
know how people perceive us. So we are not saying, oh, we're just making these things up or whatever. Like we have to be extremely mindful of how people perceive us, the tone policing in terms of what we say and even in our emails. So I love that, right?
Yeah.
So you provide a space for Black women to share what they want to say and how they want to say it, and for you to
Yes.
be able to coach them through it. I love that.
Yes, and take out some of the charge that might be there because you may be if you're in a situation and you get emotionally activated and you go immediately to write that email, that might go a little different
You're
than if
right.
you take that walk, sis.
Yes. Take a moment.
Have someone else read the email, like, okay, what am I giving in this email? So, like, I do
Yeah.
that among many other things. And so the coaching services, and I have like the group mentoring courses. Like if you want to share community with other Black women who are navigating these things together, I do have several of those cohorts as well. So if you just reach out to me on my website, it's www.tiffanybowden.com. I'm happy to connect you into any of those cohorts or for one-on-one coaching.
Awesome. Okay. So I'll put all of Dr. Bowden's information in the description section. So Dr. Bowden, we're going to wind down soon. I do want to read the chat that has been very active. And I also want to say something. When you said something about how narcissistic people can teach you things, I want
Absolutely.
to also say that that was something that I used to tell myself when I was at the previous toxic job about this toxic leader, so-called leader. And she actually brought in somebody who talked about trauma-informed care and things like that. And the woman said this, and I believed it. She said, people who are narcissistic or struggling in some ways, who are engaged in negative behaviors, they can become your revered teachers of what not to be. how not to be. And
Mhm.
so I would look at this woman like I would never be like her in terms of as a leader or as a person. And so how do we kind of transform that experience in terms of, okay, this is my revered teacher, not in a good way, but it's my revered teacher.
Absolutely. You can use it. You can
Yes,
use all the things that come your way. Like,
yes,
take all the bricks that are thrown at you and build a house, sis. Like
girl,
it's gonna edify you. Like,
yes,
don't worry about it. So, but you have to have that attitude of this is happening for me, right? This is
yes,
happening for me, not to me. If you can get to that point, even though it's
yeah,
painful, even if
yes,
this person is doing all these foul things, even if it is that other person's fault, like, what can we learn from it? What can we use from the thing?
yes. And how do you transform it, right? And how do you channel what happened to you? I remember one time she gave a speech, and I would never understand what she was talking about in her speeches, right, or her presentations. But I got this one, and she said, kites and diamonds are similar because they both thrive under pressure.
Mhm.
And so remember that too. So sometimes when you're in this toxic situation, you can actually grow from it. And I
Yeah,
think that's what we're talking about too, right? Okay,
absolutely.
so the chat.
Oh,
Hello, Harriet.
one thing I
I'll say,
want to say too, though, is that there's also a saying that pressure bursts pipes. Okay, and there and there and there is something there too. So you have to know when there's too much and when to remove that,
yes,
and you have to make sure that you are reinforced with coping mechanisms and that you give yourself the support that you need to be agile enough to deal with that pressure. There's two ways, in my opinion, that you can deal with pressure. You can fold
ooh,
under pressure, or you can learn from our Montgomery cousins, right? Like with the fold and share, you can fold that pressure.
exactly, exactly. So, oh, girl, you've been dropping so many gems, like so many quotable gems. So I'm gonna just post this too. You said pressure burst pipes. So no, and this is gonna sound crazy, but I'm gonna quote Kenny Rogers, right? So in the sense that know when to fold them. You know what I'm saying? Know when it's time to go. There might be time to, it's just time to go. Okay. But you need to have that discernment. You need to have that discernment. Okay. So
Yep,
pressure burst pipes. Remember
yep.
that.
Know when
Okay.
to hold them,
So
know when to fold them.
exactly, exactly. Okay. So my dear friend Colette Elizabeth is here. We call it together the Harriets. So we help Black women leave toxic jobs. So if you have not already subscribed to Colette Elizabeth's channel, please do so. And also Marissa Price, my dear friend as well. So subscribe to our channels. Dr. Tiffany Bowden and Larry All, I have to say, is uh-oh for the topic. Okay, I've been there. No one tells you what to do. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I call it shut down, sabotage, and steal. Ooh, yes. Play. It happens all the time. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, these are often childhood wounds. Truth in that statement. I've never heard it put like that. Wow. So true, Dr. Bowden. Get your confidence broken when you stay too long in an organization.
Yeah,
Gaslit out of our greatness. Unfortunate and true. So many workplaces where Black women are serving greatness. Yes. Let's see. Yes, prior to my yes, on my prior plantation, that's what Colette and I talk about, previous jobs.
it's true.
I observed how Black women had to leave the organization to promote. Then they would return for a higher position. I was told many times I needed to leave to promote and then come back. That is ridiculous. That's ridiculous, right?
Well,
That
that's a
you are not
common
valued.
practice. That's a common practice, actually.
Wow. Okay. The power
And
of
it's
the
in
view.
some and I will say at a former company that I was at, and you could check my LinkedIn and back into which of those.
I love how you say that, right? Like if you want to know,
If you
you
want
can
to
find
know
out.
the key, it's
Yes.
very findable information. But I will say that the Black employees in those environments likened it to a caste system, because if you come in at a particular level, you have to stay at that level until you get promoted. But the problem is that the promotion process is very subjective, and a lot of
Yes.
Black folks get held down. So you end up having to leave the company and come back. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
The games we have to play, right? Or the games we choose to play. We don't have to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
The
Take your
power
ball,
of
and
the
go
Black woman.
home.
What'd you say?
I say you can take your ball and go home too.
Yeah. Take it somewhere else. Okay. Yes. The power of the Black woman comes from our melanin. Our melanin is a superpower that is uniquely charged by the sun. Yes. Hello, all. My former toxic job had a whole psychological safety initiative while being toxic.
Well, let me just say something.
Oh, God.
Okay, let me just say something. Since 2020, we had a whole lot of performativity. I
Yes.
hope that none of y'all fell for the trick bag that all of a sudden they just had an awakening overnight in these listening
That
sessions.
racism, that there is racism.
Yeah, right, right. So it's like it was interesting. It was like white folks kind of just like discovered racism, like Columbus, if you will. Like it was like all of a sudden it was just there.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it was like, we have to end racism immediately. And who's
Yes.
gonna do it? You're gonna do it. You're
Oh,
gonna
you got to,
do
yeah, you got to show us.
it.
And you know what? The part that would drive me crazy was, and when we say white people, we're talking about white supremacy. So white, anybody can engage in
Mhm.
white supremacy behaviors. Black people, other people are
Yes.
not white. But what they would do was, and this would drive me crazy, that like that feigned ignorance, like, we didn't know. You knew because you keep doing it. You're doing it now, right? So let us not fall into these traps of trying to convince people about what something was harmful or racist. They know already. And the part about the psychological safety initiative while being toxic, oh my God, Marissa. So really quickly, the head toxic person at the job, the workplace bully, she was like, "Oh, I've been reading about positive psychology, and I have just recognized how many people are hurting within our unit, and I'm going to really advocate for psychological safety." Dr. Bowden, it took everything in me not to burst out laughing. Like, you are the source of the toxicity. This is why people don't feel safe. And you talking about positive psychology? Oh my God.
What
Okay.
they got was they got the talking points. They got the talking points, okay?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so now they know the things to say, but the actions are not following what,
No.
what we need to see. And
No.
there needs to be certain investments in order to move things to the next level, and that's also not happening. And instead,
Yes.
seeing rollbacks, cutting of budgets. Okay, so
Yes.
follow the actions. Listen to the actions is what I was saying.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I don't feel included or that I belong. They take group photos when I'm not around and stare at me like I'm nuts when I offer ideas or feedback on a process. Sis, I can't tell you what to do. I don't want to convince you. I would just encourage you to really evaluate your situation, like Dr. Biden was talking about, and really think about if that's a place you want to stay, okay? Because that is straight up exclusion.
That's
This
that's
country.
that's a space that you don't even feel like you have the first level inclusion safety.
Oh, oh, not even that, right? Yes. This country never expected Black women to achieve extreme levels of success and phenomenal accomplishments. Folks are stunned, confused, and outdone because they have been lied to about who we are. Yes, so true. If you're a Black woman and want to leave, oh, thank you, Marissa. Okay. So, Marissa, true transparency, she's my VA too. She's outstanding. If you're a Black woman who want to leave or you want to heal from a toxic job, I do discovery calls. So in the description section is if you want to book a discovery call with me,
Love it.
so I can help you get out. There's such a possible reframe. I got stuck in that trap too. I'm sorry for your experience. Me too. Someone once told me that there is a difference between running away and getting out alive. Yes, save yourself.
Mm.
Narcissists love to take all of your energy and keep you confused. Yes, absolutely. That video you did, Marissa Price, about self-gaslighting, so on point. And we did one together on my channel as well. Thank you. I'm quitting next month. Yay. I'm excited about my next chapter. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you for doing that. I just love tech, toxic. They're giving support in the chat for you leaving. No job is worth my good health and my peace. Much support and success to all Black women. Systemic racism benefits white women. That's why the poll came back with 60%. Oh no, I literally felt like I was being tolerated. 20 years in the game, done and finished. Okay, I'm glad you're leaving. Oh God. Thank you, Marissa Price. I've been on sabbatical for 17 months. Awesome. I needed this time away. I see so much clearer now. Excellent. All of this great information. Thank you, Dr. Bowden, for speaking about this and saying Dr. Mortimer's name. Yes, Dr. Nikita Mortimer. If you have not already read about her story, please read about her story. If you work in California, You may also be eligible for state disability insurance. FMLA is job protection with no pay. However, SDI or short-term state disability insurance is pay with no job protection. Take them in tandem. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Colette, for that. Eligible workers may get up to 52 weeks of partial wage replacement, and the benefit is tax-free. Awesome. Okay. And so Marissa put Dr. Bowden's website, so please check that out. Is the mistreatment of Black women on jobs happening in every state? I'm in the South, and people are divided down here. What would you say about that?
You said that people are being mistreated in particular in the South?
She's asking, is the mistreatment of Black women on jobs happening in every state? I'm in the South, and people are divided down here.
No, Black women are being mistreated, regardless of the region. It's just that how it shows up may be different. Like, I'm from the Midwest. I've, lived in Los Angeles. I'm down in Texas now. I will tell you that there's just been some evolutions in how different microaggressions show up. Sometimes things are a bit more directed on the nose. Sometimes things are very polite and subtle, but these things are still present. Sometimes it comes from a place of like the work that you're even trying to do. There's just absolutely no place for it because they just don't even hold the belief in racism or in the things that you're even talking about. And that's its own kind of conversation. So yes, this is all over. Just how it shows up is different.
Exactly. So if people are denying your experience, that's problematic right there. More than likely, that's validating that that's happening. Okay. Mm-hmm. Not our Montgomery cousins. Yes. Oh my God. 2020 was something. This is how it resonates with me. I need to leave after 20 years. Thank you, Dr. Kamani. You're welcome. Dr. Kamani and Dr. Bowden, you are brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My heart goes out to these Black women who don't have degrees, aren't the most educated, but still struggle every day without resources to change their circumstances. So I just want to say, this is for all Black women. So regardless of your degree, your background, wherever, I even see the UK. Yes, thank you for coming from the UK. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And so even if you don't so-called have a degree or whatever, what we're sharing with you applies to all Black women. So I want all Black women to know that you have options, no matter what your educational degree is, but most importantly, that you know that no job is worth your life. You deserve better than that, okay?
Just some of the degrees, okay? Those degrees have not translated to increases on our pay. Let's disregard that. That's a whole nother issue. Is that we have been putting forth a lot of energy to get these degrees, to get this education. There's plenty of reports that saying that we have done our part. Okay. And now what's happening is that you have all these initiatives to say, oh, we don't need to care about the degrees, just, whatever. And so it's a double-edged sword, right? So it's like, on one hand, we want to increase access. We want to increase access for folks who do have skills that, maybe they've been able to get the things externally and didn't have to get the degree to get a thing. On another hand, you should honor people who have put in the time, the energy, the effort to get the training, and you should pay them accordingly. And those things are happening at the same time. And so things have swung in a whole different way. And Black women in particular are being negatively impacted because it's giving a reason to underpay Black women and underpay professionals who have degrees.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I work in an international nonprofit, very profitable, that has a toxic, disrespectful environment. This aids no good managers to be no good. Even coworkers snap each other. Yes. So we're talking about toxic work environments. And you would tell toxic work environment because first of all, you can feel it, but you're able to see how people treat each other, the gossiping, the cattiness, the cliquishness, all those different things. It's not good for the work environment. Okay.
And a word on that. You can have, I do, diversity consulting, leadership consulting. I have tested certain organizations that score an 8.5 out of 10 in terms of psychological safety for an organization, which means that it has high levels of psychological safety. And they are still toxic environments. And they are toxic environments because they all feel psychologically safe with each other to do toxic things together.
Right. So toxicity protects the toxicity. That's why they feel safe. Oh my God. That's crazy. That's crazy. This is from Colette. Okay, my experience took place in a state agency where I worked for almost 30 years. If you're curious where I worked, check out my prior comment. I love how we're saying like where we work, right? So I previously worked at the second largest school district in the nation. Okay,
Mhm.
so like Dr. Bowden said, check my LinkedIn profile. You see what I'm talking about. And I'm about to have Dr. Bowden. I'm about to have a video that comes out this week where that place where I work, Black women have recently been filing lawsuits. So I already knew about lawsuits that have been settled and people didn't know about them, but these are now more public lawsuits. So I am going to have a video and I'm going to actually post those lawsuits so you can see that. Some
That's
Black women choose to take legal action. I commend those women for doing so. I have thought about doing so, particularly like a class action suit, because there's so many of us that do that. So
that
again,
makes
explore your options, explore your options.
sense.
So, Dr. Bowden, as we are winding down, any last words that you would like to say to the audience?
I just want to say to anyone who is out there who is struggling, like if your spirit is just breaking under these jobs, please do reach out for support. You have a village around you who has tools, and we're not here to see you fall. Okay, that if you came to this session, there's something that's in you that's like, I need to hear this message. Okay, either you
Yes,
were in a toxic job or you've been in one and you're on a growth journey, or you're needing a life raft and you're needing to get pulled out to the other side, you have help. I think a lot of
yes,
us sometimes we can get into a space where we don't feel like we can ask for help, or we don't reach for the life raft. And for some of you who might be listening, it might be time to do that. So please take advantage of any of the resources that resonated with you, and just seek that assistance. That's probably the most important thing that I will say. And just to know your worth. Okay, know your worth and know that you do not have to stay in hostile and toxic work environments. And there are actually laws that protect against some of these things depending on the nature of your situation. You can reach out to an employment lawyer to evaluate your situation. Sometimes they can take your case on contingency depending on the nature of your issues. So if it's a financial thing, don't let that necessarily stop you from at least just talking to an employment attorney and just evaluating the thing and taking action. Also, finally, if you're angry, if you're dealing with anger, that is okay. It's a healthy emotion. Okay. You
every
feel
right.
angry. Yes, you feel anger when there's been a boundary that has been crossed. Okay. So discover for yourself what is that boundary that's been crossed, and know that anger is a gift. Anger is
Yeah.
something that can spawn you to action. Okay. So what is the action, the healthy action that's going to move you forward? Okay. And not move you towards destruction, self-destruction, or anything like that. What is the anger action that you can do to move yourself forward in a healthy way?
Yes, thank you so much. Because when it was talking about that in anger, that yes, we have every right to feel anger when somebody has harmed us. But I think as Black women, we are so cautious because of the stereotype of the angry Black woman that we don't want to express that. But we're saying not in the workplace, but in
Mhm.
another place, where can you express and process that anger? Because if you don't, it does turn into depression. So we have to be very mindful of that, that we don't internalize those things. And when you also talked about, Dr. Bowden, about accessing resources, you talked about resources. I have resources. I just want Black women to know you have to have an open hand to receive them. And as Black women, we've been taught all these different things, but you know what's best for you. This is your life. And sometimes I've heard about this, Dr. Bowden. I don't know if you heard about this, LinkedIn trolls. Have you heard about the
Oh,
LinkedIn trolls?
no.
You've heard about that? Oh my God. So I recently found out about LinkedIn trolls.
Okay.
So these are employers who spy on their employees on LinkedIn. Yes.
Okay.
And I've heard of Black women talk about that those people, those employers will come back and brag about what they found out about people. So sometimes people are very leery of posting things on LinkedIn, commenting on things on LinkedIn. So Dr. Bowden and I want you to know that if you feel like you need the support, you can get us any kind of way. You can go to our website. You don't have to post, you don't have to respond on LinkedIn, but don't let that stop you from getting the support that you need, and you decide the support that you need. So Marissa already posted, and I talked about this before. If you are ready to leave a toxic job and you don't know how to get out, but you watching this right now, it's Sunday evening, you watch this like, oh God, I want to go back to my job, but I don't know how to get out. Book a discovery call with me. I'll put that in the description section. Also, if you are so disconnected, we talked about this too, when you're in a toxic job, fighting so much, you could become disconnected from yourself. And if you need to figure out what am I trying to do? How do I get my life together? Then I do have a Queendom workbook for you. So the Welcome to Your Queendom digital fillable workbook. So that's an option for you as well. So again, a lot of resources for you. Be open and receive them. And also, as we are talking about you supporting and healing yourself, please look out for other Black women too. Please help your sister out. If you know a Black woman, more than likely she's in a toxic job or she's had a toxic job. So please help your sister out, and you can help her out and help yourself out too. Okay. So give this video a thumbs up. It lets YouTube know to suggest this video to other Black women. Share this video with as many Black women as you can. Okay. Just click the icon, share it to as many Black women as you can. And if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do so. So I look forward to seeing you all next time. Dr. Bowden, if you could just stay on for a moment. And everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in. Very lively conversation. So many quotable moments. It was so, and I was like, yeah, I was vibing with you about some of the same experiences, okay? So Black women, remember what we talked about. You deserve better. There is better for you. You do have options. And also, please look out for other Black women. Give this video a thumbs up. Share this video with as many Black women as you know. And also, be clear with yourself about what you need for yourself and know you deserve better. Okay? Okay, so signing off. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.